Good day everyone, welcome to CSC 308. This is Information Assurance and Security. Today we're going to have another pre-recorded class. This is in continuation to our previous discussion, which is about Introduction to Information Security. My name is Juleus, your instructor. Today, please be sure to watch the entire video, listen and understand the lessons attentively. Right after this class, there will be learning assessment and assignment to be posted. So without any further ado, let's get started. If you have any questions or clarifications regarding to today's lesson, please go ahead and comment your question down to our Facebook group post, or you can send your questions through our respective Facebook chat groups. Right, so previously we've discussed about the introduction to security. Particularly, we've talked about what is security, the information security, or basically we've talked about perhaps the history of information security, how it become or how the information security progress. And then we've also talked about some of the key information security concepts or terminologies that we'll be using all throughout this course. For today's lesson, we'll be talking about the critical characteristics of information and then the components of an information system. So the critical characteristics, basically this is understanding what makes an information valuable. After all, our goal here in this course is to protect information. So why do we need to protect, or basically just giving us the reason why we should protect information. Unsay naaday sa information, why do we have to protect that? So that's going to be talking about critical characteristics of information. And the components of an information system. So what are the different components or areas where the information must be protected? Okay, it could be either hardware, software, physical, so on and so forth. We'll be talking more about it in just a few moments. And our learning objectives, so by the end of this lesson, you should be able to value the importance of the characteristics that makes data valuable. And then understand the different components of information system in preparation to learning information security. All right, so basically all of these will be preparation to our deeper learning about information security. Again, for the first part, we are going to talk about why the characteristics that makes an information valuable. And then the second part, we'll be talking about the different areas where the information system or the information belong, or something like that. Okay, so let's start. Critical characteristics of information. The value of information comes from the characteristics it possesses. When a characteristic of information changes, the value of that information neither increases or, more commonly, decreases. Some characteristics affect information's value to users more than others do. Okay, so let's say, for example, you are ordering for a gift. You're ordering online, let's say, a gift for a friend's birthday, which is next week. So you're expecting that the product must be delivered before the birthday, because if the product or the gift will be delivered after the birthday, somehow the timeliness of the information right there has already lost its value. The information already lost its value, or the gift already lost its value. It's because it is no longer timely. Okay, that is one of the example. Timeliness of information can be a critical factor because information loses its value when it is delivered too late. Can we all agree with that? Okay, how do we feel whenever we receive any information which is already passed for too long? It's already due for too long, right? Though information security professionals and end users share an understanding of the characteristics of information, tensions can arise when the need to secure the information from threat conflicts with the user's need in accessing the information. So basically, the characteristics or losing the value of an information can cause a lot of problems, let alone tensions can arise. All right. So anyway, we'll be talking more about why information are important by discussing its characteristics in a few moments. All right. So these are the critical characteristics of information. So let's start with availability. Again, this is one of the critical characteristics of information. So an information keeps its value or retains its value by or according to its availability. Availability enables authorized users, persons, or computer systems to access information without interference or obstruction and to receive it in required format. So basically, is the information available for everybody? Is the information available from the one who gave the information to the end user? Right? For example, research libraries that require identification before entrance. Diba? If you can remember the last time that you were still that we're still having face-to-face classes, but most of us enjoyed going through libraries, and most libraries, maybe not here, but most libraries will require identification before entrance or before you'll be able to um, enter the library. You will be asked to produce an identification, library card or student ID or something like that. That is for the librarians to protect the contents inside the library so that it will only be available to the authorized patrons or let's say the students. All right, so that is an example. So let's say your Facebook account or any social networking sites. So how do you make sure that your account is or that the information inside your your Facebook account is available? So you can either have it given to everybody, so that is your way of availability. However, perhaps you can only authorize some of the closest friends. All right, let's say, okay, let's put it on a celebrity's perspective. So, for example, you are a celebrity, right? So it's not all the time that you will be able to manage your personal account or your Facebook page alone. Most of the time, you're going to hire a social networking manager, or I'm not really sure what they call admin, rep, diba? Facebook admin or page admin, something like that. You have to hire a manager when it comes to your social networking accounts because you just don't have the time to manage it on your own. All right. Now, how are you going to make sure that the information inside your Facebook account will be available only for those who are authorized to access to it? Diba? So, you have to make sure that your password or anything like that, the credentials, will only be given to the sets of people whom you are expecting to or whom you are authorizing to use your account. Wala na lain dapat maka-access ana kundi ikaw o ang mga taong imong i-authorize. And then once you already once they already have access to your account, then the availability of the information which is already inside your Facebook account or your social networking account will already be available for them without having any obstruction or any other problems. Okay, going back to our example or library example a while ago. So once the library already accepted your like as a student or patron's identification, then the contents or every book or every let's say the contents of the stacks or anything like that, it should be all available to you. Diba? Wala na laing problema because you've already gained access. You should be able to have access to everything that is gonna provide para sa imo. So you, for example, if you are inside the library and you've already been given authorization to access, then you were expecting to find information um, information which is already available in a usable format and familiar language, right? So which is in case typically means bound in a book written in English, right? So that is availability. So again, one of the characteristics of information is its availability. That is one way in protecting the information. Its availability. Okay? So, dili lang siya yung available sa tanan, but it's the limitation to its availability. So, again, there are only a few people who will have access depending on the information that you have. All right? So, that is availability. Next critical characteristics of information is what we call accuracy. Information has accuracy when it is free from mistakes or errors and it has the value that the end user expects. If information has been intentionally or unintentionally modified, it is no longer accurate. So this is very important, especially when it comes to bisan sa mga ginagmay lang na companies or organizations. especially those who are kanang mga dagko national organizations, let's say PSA, Philippine Statistics Authority, who are doing census surveys regarding the lives, the kanang kahimtang sa mga Filipino, right? Accuracy is very important for information. So consider example, checking an account. Let's say um, checking accounts for banks, diba? Example, you assume that the information contained in your checking account is an accurate representation of your finances. So, for example, you have a bank account. Again, everything that is inside your checking account or your savings account um, accurately represents your finances. So, for example, in Akay, let's say 10,000 pesos reflected on your checking account, then you are expecting that you actually have 10,000 pesos amount on your reflected for your finances. Incorrect information in your checking account can result from external or internal errors. If a bank teller, for instance, mistakenly adds or subtracts too much money from your account, the value of the information is changed, diba? If everything has already been changed when it comes to accuracy, if one or a few things have already modified, then the accuracy or the value of that information, so, or the information has already lost its value, right? So for example, if nasayop ang imong bank information, it's not wala siya nag-coincide sa what exactly the amount of your bank account or your bank information. Do you think musalig pa ka sa banko mismo? I don't think so. Okay, so again, that is one of the critical characteristics of information. It's accuracy. Information must be accurate. Okay, next is authenticity. Authenticity of information is a quality or state of being genuine or original rather than a reproduction or fabrication. Information is authentic when it is in the same state in which it was created, placed, stored, and transferred. Okay, so this is very crucial nowadays when it comes to authenticity of a product, this authenticity of an information, diba? Most of the time, whenever we see any post, diba, kana mga let's say kana mga controversial nga mga posts or mga contents online, what we usually do is we tend to share it right away because by just reading it, we thought that tinuod siya without really checking what is the source. If it's that's the same thing from the moment it was created, or if it was created at the first place. All right. So authenticity that is very important, especially nowadays. How true is the information that you're getting? How true is the information that you're trying to give? Diba? Okay, consider for a moment some common assumptions about email. So when you receive an email, you assume that a specific individual or group created and transmitted the email. You assume that you know the origin of the email. So for example, you received an email coming from your friend about inviting to his or her birthday party. All right? So since you know kinsa ng tawhana, kinsa ang gasend mo, you assume that you know that person. You assume that the the email is legitimate. All right. Again, if your friend send you an email inviting you to his or her birthday, and then pagtanaw nimo sa sender is you know that person, so you expect that the invitation is valid, the invitation is legitimate. Okay. However, that is not always the case. If you can remember, if you already heard the word email spoofing, okay, email spoofing, this is an act of sending an email with a modified field. It is a common problem for many people today because often the modified field is in the address of the originator. Spoofing a sender's address can fool email recipients. All right, so that is one of the kind of sa mga problema karon when it comes to email sending, especially when it comes to um, kind of mga sensitive information. Spoofing is an act of kada bang i-trick ni mga tao nga you will let them know that or you will let them kanang imos lang paingnon nga kani nga email is coming from another person, but in reality it is not true. All right, so that is spoofing. So dali ra kay ng buhaton. You just have to create an email address, and perhaps the first and last name of that account belongs to a certain person, which is really not that person. That's already email spoofing. Okay. Spoofing can also alter data being transmitted across the network, so on and so forth. Okay, so again, th- one of the ways we can maintain the value of an information is to check its authenticity before we are going to provide any information to everybody. Before we're going to receive any information from everybody, we have to check its authenticity, how authentic that information really is. Okay, so that is one of the characteristics of information. Information must be authentic. Okay, so email spoofing, again, an act of sending an email message with a modified field. All right. Also, another siguro another activity or another act in um kanang threatening an information, or another act that will threaten an information's authenticity, is what we call phishing. Okay, maybe some of you already heard what is phishing. It's not phishing kadong managat, but it's phishing. Phishing. That is an act whenever an attacker attempts to obtain personal or financial information using fraudulent means, most often by posing as another individual or organization. So, back in the day when I was still in college, when Facebook wasn't really that secured compared today. Right now, we already have two-factor authentication and so on and so forth. Back then, when I was in college, uso ka itong na internet cafe dire sa Bais na pag open mo sa browser sa browser, let's say Chrome, mo-open siya og Facebook na page. Alright? Murag siya Facebook, but in reality, it's not really Facebook. It's just a web page that is kanang gi-copy niya ang hitsura sa Facebook to trick other people to log into that page. And then once they try to log in the username and password, then katong username and password will really not go anywhere to dili siya mo adto sa Facebook, dili siya mo adto sa database sa Facebook. It's because it's not really Facebook in the first place. It is only a website that is made to look like a Facebook page. All right. So what happened whenever people will enter the first and last name, those sorry, the email address and the password, the email address and password will be sent to whoever created the fake na page, and then they already get the information, the credentials coming from that person. So back then, daghan kayong mga estudyante, daghan kayong mga tao, especially katong mga medyo taas-taas kanang magagamit og internet cafe, patingala na lang sila nga ang ilang account is na-hack. One common way in doing that is phishing. Again, na page nga they make it to look like a Facebook, but in reality, it's not really Facebook at all. So that is an example of phishing, di ba? Pretending to be somebody else or pretending to be something which is not real. Okay, that scenario, the hacker who created the page created a website and make it look like Facebook, but then again, to get the information or the login credentials of the users. All right. So basically, that is phishing. So how do we make sure that it will not happen to all of us? All right. How do we make sure? So whenever you're trying to log into Facebook or any social networking site for that matter, okay, for example, here, if we will go to Facebook, diba, facebook.com. Okay, always make sure that the URL is correct. Make sure that it really is www.facebook.com. If the if the URL is different, so that is already a phishing page. And then another thing, make sure that the protocol is HTTPS rather than just HTTP. Okay, the S is the SSL, or it is a nalimutan ko. It is a secured. Okay, I forgot what SSL means, so let's just check it. Okay, it's an SSL certificate or so my meaning ano eh? Secure sockets layer. All right, it's a secure sockets layer. Basically, it is just a way of making sure that that website is secured. Okay. All right, let's proceed. Next, another characteristics of information is that information should have its confidentiality. Information has confidentiality when it is protected from disclosure or exposure to unauthorized individuals or system. Confidentiality ensures that only those with the rights and privileges to access information are able to do so. Okay, when unauthorized individuals or system can view information, the confidentiality is already breached. Okay, so this is very important. Not all information are available for everybody, di ba? Una natong critical characteristic is its availability. Now, we can maintain the confidentiality of an information if the availability is limited to the authorized individuals only. Okay? So that doesn't mean that information is available. It is good information. The information is secured. No. We can maintain the security of the information or the importance of the availability the confidentiality of information by limiting the availability to those who have to those who are authorized only. Okay, so let's say for example, say if you have a if naka information on your own, how do you make sure that let's say you have a very important message or very important information that should be given to, let's say, a friend. Okay, so, as your friend, I have the confidence that that information that private information that that trying to give me, or that I'm trying to give you, diba, should should be accessed only by you. Otherwise, the confidentiality will be breached. All right, especially for those who have kind of mga private messages na to sa itong girlfriends or boyfriends, we are expecting that those messages should only be available to that person who's you're trying to send it to, because if that person will leak those information or those messages that you're trying to send, then the confidentiality is already breached. All right, so there are no more security of the information whatsoever. Okay, so that is confidentiality. Now, for large format informations, here are some of the measures on how to protect the confidentiality of an information. So you can either first one is information classification. So information classification helps to ensure that individuals involved inside the organization have the knowledge and are aware what data or what type of data they are working with and its value, as well as their obligation or responsibilities in protecting it and preventing data breach or loss. Okay, so every department or everybody inside an organization should know what type of data that they are handling and should know what are the obligations and responsibilities that they have that they should observe to protect the data or the information and preventing data breach or loss. Right? So information classification. Next is secure document storage. All right. So this is very basic. This belongs to the physical security. Information must be stored securely. So there are tons of ways how we can secure or the storage of our documents. So sa mga karaang panahon, we still have steel cabinets. Okay? So for example, you're handling an information for an organization that contains sensitive information of a lot of people. So you can either compile them on a folder, and those folders will be stored in a steel cabinet, and then with lock, 'di ba? Dapat na i-lock, and then the lock ang lock is should be given to the authorized, or let's say the head of the office only, and the secretary, ano ba? Limiting the numbers limiting the users, or the individuals who have access to the information. So although these individuals are still inside or still belong to an organization, however, the authorization must be only be given to limited people only. It could be either the head, it could be either the secretary, so on and so forth. It will be totally up to the organization. Right? And then another thing, karon kay medyo bago-bago naman ta, so we have cloud storage, di ba? When you say cloud storage, like Google Drive, um, Dropbox for Apple, something like that. So we can store our documents on we can store our let's say documents or our files or any information over the cloud, given that we will be using the cloud who has already tested their kada ba ganing secured kabalota nga secured na sila. All right, so we have Google Drive, we have Dropbox, we have iCloud, something like that, because we are assured that these information or these cloud storage company or cloud services have already tested their security over the time, diba? And then, of course, these cloud storages requires login credentials. So again, the login credentials should only be given to the authorized people as well. Okay. Next is application of general security and policies. So information security policies provides direction upon which control framework can be built to secure the organizations against external and internal threats. Okay. So basically, the organization must have security policies. All right. So the information or the IT, the head of the IT or the security, most of the time, ang security heads of security department should provide policies on how the organization should run its um, operation, keeping the equipments or the information safe. 'Di ba? Kaya may tabo man gud og sa kinsa rin na access sa information or kung walay guide what to do to keep the information or the information and everything else inside an organization safe, then wala. Dapat they should know what to do. There should be guideline. Okay, there should be guideline or policies on in which people inside an organization should know what to do. All right. And then next is we have education of information custodians and users. So basically, let's say na ay mga trainings na, everybody inside an organization should have an ample knowledge how to keep the information safe. They should be dapat kabalo sila by heart that these information are must be secured, and then na lang, they should be trained how to keep the information inside the organization safe. Mhm. Okay. The value of confidentiality information. The value of confidentiality of information is especially high when it is personal information about employees, customers, or patients. Individuals who transact with an organization expect that the personal information will remain confidential. Confidential. Now, whether the organization is federal or agency, such as Internal Revenue Services or Bureau of Internal Services, BIR, Bureau of Internal Revenue. So we all know that BIR or Bureau of Internal Revenue already not necessarily access sa ato ang finances. It's because basically they need our information about our finances to compute our tax, the tax that we are supposed to give to the government or to the country. Sorry, sakto bang term? Okay, I think that's it. All right. So it's not just for people; it is for organizations, businesses, so on and so forth. Now, problems arise when companies disclose confidential information. Diba? Now, if BIR will disclose those information that we are about NATO. So it can problems will arise. So that's why there are lots of news that we can hear, especially online, or let's say there are lots of news regarding data breach or data confidentiality issues, diba? Like itong Facebook nagi fine sila. It's because they were guilty in kanang pag-breach or pag-leak og information about an election in the US. I'm not really sure which country was it, but nainhitabog inana. Okay, because again, problems arise when companies or anybody discloses confidential information. Sometimes this disclosure is intentional, but there are times when disclosure of confidential information happens by mistake. So, for example, when a confidential information is mistakenly emailed to somebody outside the organization, okay? So, nasipyat na wrong send. Okay, so that is an intentional um, disclosure of information, but still, it is still disclosure of information. All right. So it's very important that information must be protected in a way that its confidentiality will be taken care of as well. Another example of confidentiality breaches is kani, throwing away documents containing critical information without shredding it. Okay, so most of the companies that handles um, information, financial information, or any confidential information, nasa ilahang shredders. In that way, once this document is no longer needed, they have to shred it. It's also the same case here in NORSU Bais at the mga colleges. We are whenever some student information is no longer is already obsolete. That means, for example, these students have already graduated for a very long time, and those information is already stored in the database, diba? As for the registrar, they should keep all of the information from the very beginning, ever since that the Negros Oriental State University is instated up until today. However, for the colleges, they don't necessarily have to. Sometimes, I guess, the college will only keep the information of the students who are currently enrolled in the college. So whenever the student already graduated, then there's no need for the college to keep the information. So what each of the colleges do, they shred it. Munang dapat unta siya nga sunugon, dapat sunugon or gisiyon ang mga papel. It should be disposed of completely. In that way, di ba, pag ilaban na to ang papel or mga papeles nga intact lang, somebody, let's say sa basurahan, will be able to read those information still. So that is still this breaching confidentiality. So every unusable documents, although it's no longer dili gyapon siya gamiton, given the fact that that information stores or that document stores information from somebody, it must be shredded. Okay. Next is a hacker successful breaks into an internal database and stealing sensitive information. So God forbid na ay hacker ng kasulod sa enrollment system sa NORSU, and then they try to change your grade. Okay, although it's impossible, it's because every now and then gina-back up good ang system, gina-back up ang system. But let's say nahitabo na, then that is an example of confidential breaking into sorry, that is an example of confidentiality breach. Okay. Next, the next critical characteristics of an information is that information must have integrity. Integrity refers to the accuracy and completeness of data. Information has integrity when it is full, complete, and uncorrupted. The integrity of information is threatened when the information is exposed to corruption, damage, destruction, or other disruption of authentic state. Okay? So, let's say kung ang imong file or imong document is gisi, dili mabasa, that is basically, oh, I'm sorry. Pag ang information, let's say your document, it should be clear, dapat mabasa siya, wala siya gisi, limpyo, dili corrupted, okay, dili corrupted, walay nangawala nga files, inana, to maintain its integrity. Information must be complete, must be walay damage, walay destruction, and it must be in its authentic state. Okay, now most of us kani maka-experience that whenever we're dealing with electronic files. Let's say mga files that we save in our flash disk, our memory sticks, like a USB flash drive, memory card. Most of the time, or sometimes, we can experience this error message saying that the file is corrupt or cannot be opened. So most of the time, whenever we see this error message, that is already the end of our file. Talagsaon na lang kaya na siya nga ma-recover. Corrupted files are computer files that suddenly become inoperable or unusable rather. There are several reasons why file may become corrupted. First, it could be either, for example, you're transferring a file. You're transferring a file from your memory disk to your computer, and then while it's still being transferred, your flash disk or flash drive is taken out from its port. So while nag-transfer pa siya, nag-iibot ng USB flash disk, then it can cause corruption of files. Alright? Another thing is whenever your computer or your flash memory is attacked with worms or viruses. So that can be a problem that can cause any file or any file be corrupted. In some cases, it is possible to recover and fix the corrupted file, while at other times it may be necessary to delete the file and replace it with an earlier version. This is one of the reasons why making regular backups is important. So, again, it is very important, especially when handling very important documents or files. You should always keep a backup to it. Okay? So, me, kung ako, if mag-deal ko any information, especially right now, I'm currently handling very important files because I'm an instructor and all of your works will be saved in my computer. So how do I make sure that your your works, your grades, your progress will be secured? So right now it is currently saved in my computer, and I'm also doing backup. Free naman ang Google Drive. So oftentimes sige na akong gina-upload ang yung mga progress. In that way, whenever, God forbid, something went wrong with my computer, then I still have a backup in my Google Drive account. I actually have two Google Drive accounts. So if ang usa na lag for some reason it will be locked out, I have another backup. Okay? So again, well, that is way of making sure that the information has its integrity. Information must have integrity. It must be complete. It must be without damage. Next, utility. The utility of information is the quality or state of having value for some purpose or end. Information has value when it can serve a purpose. If information is available but is not in a format meaningful to the end user, it is not useful. All right. So this is kanang medyo maka makapahinoktok nga characteristics of information. Its utility, because not all information will be usable by anybody. Okay, for example, to a private citizen, ang PSA census, let's say Philippine Statistics Authority census, can quickly become overwhelming and difficult to interpret. If ako yano nga tao and nakakita ko ron og document sa PSA, it will be overwhelming for me. It will be difficult to interpret for me because I'm not using dili man siya gamit na ako nga information. What would be the use of these information? All right? So that's it. However, for if I am a politician, let's say if I'm a politician and for some reason I have just handed over an information coming from PSA, the census of PSA regarding the, let's say, about the residents in the district, about their race, gender, and age. This information can be used, di ba? If politiko ko, pwede na ako yung magamit ng information for my campaign strategy. All right? So that's it. That is utility. Not all information is usable by anybody. So again, one way of securing the information is to make sure that the information should only be given to the people who will use the information itself. And then not just anybody who will use it, who have the intention to use it, but the authorized people who long to use this information, diba? Again, natay availability, dapat ang information available. However, it should be available to the people who are authorized to use it, diba? That is confidentiality. And then utility, those authorized people na kinahanglan po nila. All right? So it's not just about giving this information to somebody because he's authorized, but he's authorized and he needs it. Okay? We have to give the information to the people not because they're authorized, but they need it, and at the same time they are authorized to view that information. Okay? That is information utility. And then lastly, we have possession. The possession of information is the quality or state of ownership or control. Information is said to be in one possession if one obtains it, independent or format or other characteristics. While a breach of confidentiality always results in a breach of possession, a breach of possession does not always result in a breach of confidentiality. Again, from the term suggests, possession. So once the information has already been given to you, been handed to you, you have the possession of the information. You can either keep it safe, and actually it's your job to keep it safe, depending on the if this information is I'm sorry, if that information is being given only for those authorized, and if you're one of the authorized people, then it's your job to keep it safe. That is information possession. Now, again, di ba, if somebody will be given to anybody, let's say by breach, by way of breaching, let's say gihack na ako ang imong database, that's why I get your nagkuha na ako ang imong information. So basically, I have the possession, right? Because I have your information, but by way of stealing it. So although I have although I have the possession of that information, but it is a result of breaching confidentiality, right? So it's very important to make sure that the information that you're trying to handle must be given only to the people who are authorized. Mabalik lagi po siya sa security, our information security a while ago, or that we've discussed last time. It must be given only for the people who are authorized. Okay, so that is the critical characteristics of information. Going back, let's have a review. We have availability. So again, availability of an information, it refers to making sure that the information is available for the authorized people in clear and without having any problems. Kumbaga ready na to be given, to be accessed. That is availability. Information must be accurate. So there shouldn't be any problem. There shouldn't be any errors or modifications as to the accuracy of an information. Information must be real. Information must be accurate. Next is authenticity. Okay, so it is about the information must not be modified. The authenticity refers to the information being stored. I'm sorry. Authenticity refers to the information provided with the accurate source. Okay, so it should be it should be given from the people or the organization the of origin, and it must be given to the people who actually needed it. That is authenticity. And then we have confidentiality. That is when it is protected from disclosure or exposure to unauthorized individuals or system. Basically, keeping the information only to those people who are authorized. And then we have integrity. The information must be complete. Diba? Walay damage, walay destruction, everything must be complete and accurate. And then utility. That is maintaining the purpose of the information. The information must be handed over to the people who will need it, the authorized people who will need it. And then possession, that is keeping the information by yourself when you are already authorized to, and when you have access to it. Right? So this time, let's talk about the components of information system. So again, what we've discussed a while ago is about understanding why information needs to be protected because of its characteristics or how we are going. Okay, and then this time we are going to talk about why do we have to protect the information. That is understanding, or basically the areas rather. We're going to talk about the areas where the information must be protected. Okay. According to Britannica, information systems and integrated sets of components for collecting, storing, and processing data for providing information, knowledge, and the digital products. So that is information system. So it is the way of collecting or the components for collecting, storing, and processing data. Again, that's our goal here in learning. Oh, yeah, in studying information security is how are we going to collect, store, process the information to keep it safe, right? So that is information system. However, an information system is much more than computer hardware. It is the entire set of software, hardware, data, people, procedures, and networks that makes possible the use of information resources in organization. Okay, so these critical components enable information to be input, processed, output, and stored. Each of these information system components has its own strength and weaknesses as well as its own characteristics and uses. Each component of the information system also has its own security requirements. All right, so these are your areas where the information will be handled. Thus, these are the areas where we're going to make sure that the information is secured while it's still being processed, input, output, and stored. First is software. Okay, information can be found in the software. All right, the software component of the IS or information system comprises applications, operating systems, and assorted command utilities. Software is perhaps the most difficult IS or information security compared component to secure. Again, software is perhaps the most difficult information system um, component to secure. The exploitation of errors in software programming accounts for a substantial portion of the attacks of information, especially okay, software. Let's say, for example, electronic files or electronic documents or information stored in our computer. We all know that our computer is run by the software, diba? Our computer will not work without the software. It could be either operating system, the application that can access the file, let's say Microsoft Word or anything like that. So we the software plays a big role when it comes to processing or securing the information system. Okay, software must be protected, must be okay. The information technology industry is rife with reports warning of holes, bugs, weakness, and other fundamental problems in software. In fact, many facets of daily life are affected by buggy software, from smartphone that crash to flawed automatic automotive control computers that leads to recalls. Software carries the lifeblood of information through an organization. Okay, so it's very important that the software handles. Basically, it is responsible for making the electronic devices or the devices where we store the information or we use the information work, diba? Our computer will not work without the software. Our cell phones will not work without the software. The electronic devices of our let's say vehicles will not work without its software. So again, software, that is one of the, it's not characteristics but component. Nasayop po. Okay, sayop na siya. It should be components of information system. Second is we have hardware. Okay, again, this is not characteristics, it is components. My apologies. Hardware is physical technology that houses and executes the software, stores and transports the data, and provides interfaces for the entry and removal information from the systems. Okay, so hardware is just as important from the software. So if the software makes our computer work for us to be able to use the information, for us to be able to process the information, the hardware makes the software work as well, because obviously the software will not work without the hardware itself. Again, if wala tayo actual computer, we cannot use the software, which is the thing that we'll be using to process the information, diba? So there are lots of ways on how we can protect these. We can apply the traditional tools of physical security, like for example, how do we make sure that the information that we store on a steel cabinet will be secured? So we can either use locks and keys, restricts access and the interaction with the hardware components of an information system. Now, securing the physical location of computers and the computer themselves is important because a breach of physical security can result in a loss of information. Unfortunately, most information systems are built on hardware platforms that cannot guarantee any level of information security if unrestricted access to the hardware is possible. Okay, so again, while we are trying to protect the software side of the information system, might protecting the hardware, or let's say physical security, is just as important as well. Okay, next is we have the data. Again, this is not critical characteristics, my apologies, but it is the components for components of information system. We have data. Data stored, processed, and transmitted by a computer system must be protected. Data is often the most valuable asset possessed by an organization, and it is the main target of unintentional attacks. Systems developed in recent years are likely to make use of database management systems. Okay, so especially right now, as information technology students, as computer science students, our goal when we try to create systems, diba, kabantay mo, or programs, there has to be database management. Always, ang system nimo will not, it is always better to create or to develop a database management systems regardless of whatever system that you're trying to develop. Okay, so because the database will contain all the information that is needed or that will be processed, that will be input, diba? If our system will require input of any information or data, it must be saved to a database somewhere, and then the data must be protected at all times. It's because, again, that is the most important thing about an information, the data itself. Okay, and that is usually ang target sa mga hackers, mga target sa mga kawatan, sa mga data theft. The information from, let's say, financial information or something like that, and these are the data or save in the database, because they can either use it for their own, for whatever purpose. Okay, so data as a component of information system must be protected at all times. And then we have people. People can be the weakest link in an organization's information security program. And unless policy, education, and training, awareness, and technology are properly employed to prevent people from accidentally or intentionally damaging or losing information, they will remain the weakest link. Okay? Because human as we are, we tend to make mistakes. Okay, so that's why in order to make sure that these problems, these errors will be lessened, there must be proper awareness, proper training, and there must be technologies that will be implemented, policies that will be implemented to prevent these errors from happening, from occurring. Okay? So, because kita, diba, we are not robot that can be programmed to perform only one thing and perform it well. We tend to make mistakes. All right. So again, one of the ways we can protect the information system is to perhaps provide policy, or I'm sorry, um, device policies, provide education and training, awareness, and then perhaps use technologies that will help us in, commit, that will help us against committing any human errors that can perhaps maka-cause of information breaches and anything like that, or damaging information. So always remember that we are the weakest link of a system. So that's why it's always good to to seek of any security systems that can help reduce human errors. Then we have procedure. Another component of an information system is the procedure. Procedures are written instructions for accomplishing a specific task. When an authorized user obtains an organization procedure, this poses a threat in integrity of information. Okay? So, alright, so this is the reason why. Maybe, if you're wondering, Facebook, di ba? Whoever works for Facebook, di ba? If maghunaw na ta, kinsa gay nagtrabaho Facebook ron, they must be very genius, di ba? Because managing the entire Facebook system or the entire Facebook's algorithm, the entire kuan ba ang the entire Facebook's um, system, di ba? Okay. However, the truth is, for example, if I'm working for Facebook, I'm only knowledgeable for a certain kuan. If a person works for Facebook, they're only knowledgeable. They only have access to a specific task. They don't have access for everything, because that can um that can be a threat if usa ka trabahante kabalo siya tanang pamaagi, then it could be a threat to the entire company, because that person can either pwede siya mo-create og yaha because he already know how things work, pwede siya mo-create og yaha, or pwede niyang ihatag sa uban. That can be a possible competition or anything like that. So procedure must always be kept only to those people who should be given access or authority. The procedure must be a procedure on how things work. If it's related to how the company or organization operates, must only be given to the people who are authorized. Okay? And then, okay. Lastly, we have networks. Perhaps It is one of the most important, although everything else, all of the components of information system is just as important, but we can probably give networks an extra bit of, we can either give the network extra bit of credit when it comes to information security or information system security. The network or the IS or the information system component that created much of the needed for increased computer and information security is networking. When information systems are connected to each other from to form local area networks like LAN, and these LANs are connected to other networks such as internet, new security challenges rapidly emerge. So, for example, here in NORSU Bais, our enrollment system is currently connected or currently being used for the entire campus, meaning na ay LAN, local area network that we created for the entire campus. In that way, we'll be able to enroll students, especially now that we are wala tayo face-to-face class. So every people who works here in Norsuba are kanang the more people who will work for the enrollment, the better para mas paspas ang enrollment, since dili na pareha last time when we were still having our face-to-face class na magtalay mo and daghan kay mo encode, daghan kaya nga mo print, so medyo mapaspas. This time there are only few people who will be able to do that. So what we did is we created a network for the entire campus. In that way, people from offices will be able to help us in enrolling you guys. Okay? And especially now that we are not supposed to we are supposed to maintain physical distancing at all times. So people will, let's say, offices will be able to work on their offices only. Okay, for example, from anybody from College of Arts and Sciences Office of the Dean will be able to help us enrolling you sa opisina lang nila. Di na sila kinahanglan to CAS 5 or anywhere else. They will be able to enroll or help us with the enrollment with their offices. So basically, the entire campus is on a network for us to use the enrollment system. Now, well, that can threaten a little bit on the system, especially if naadyo yung mga rogue nga mga office workers that will just get the information coming from or will tend to modify the information from the system. Although, of course, NORSU or the NORSU's, the enrollment system, na siya iyang protocol, na siya algorithm that will keep them safe. Basically, people will only be given, or let's say workers will only be given logins that can only perform one thing, di ba? For example, kaning account dapat kani siya kay pang-enroll ra jud siya, pang-encode lang siya subject, wala na ilain. Okay? So that is again going back, that is the procedure, di ba? Anyway, although there are that alone connecting the system to the entire local area network of the university or the campus presents a threat for the system. How much more if we're going to connect it to the internet? So that's why wala gi-connect ang enrollment system sa internet. It's because it will face new security challenge. Because instead of just the entire university or the entire campus have access, pwede na maka-access an outsider. Alright? So again, that is networks is still very crucial in maintaining information security or information system security. Anyway, how are we going to protect these from the software, hardware, data, people, procedure, and networks will be discussed soon as we go along with our course. Later on, right now this is just a discussion on how what are the things that needs to be protected and how are we going to protect them as in proper ways of protecting them will be discussed soon as we go along with this course. Okay, so I hope you guys understand something for today's lessons, and if you have any questions or clarifications, you can always comment your questions down to our Facebook group post, or you can send in your questions to our respective Facebook chat groups. To assess your learning for today's lesson, kindly fill up the form. I'm going to send a copy of this link, and then the deadline will be next week, Wednesday, May 12th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. And as for your assignment, please go ahead and check our Google Classroom anytime today, any day from now. I'm going to upload it. Again, deadline will be Wednesday, May 12th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. These are our reference for today. And thank you so much for keeping this far. Make sure to keep yourself safe. and God bless us all.